Down here on the Mornington Peninsula, and we're at the stables of a trainer who's already captured Group 1 glory, VRC Oaks, AJC Derby and a BMW. And that Group 1 account, I think it's going to get bigger and bigger because he trains a budding star in the staying ranks here in Australia. Today we're spending time with Pat Carey. Take us to where it all started for you. Were you destined to be a horse trainer? I know when I looked at your bio and I saw that you started working with Johnny Marr at the age of 12. What inspires a 12-year-old to want to work with horses?
Well, there was a lot of racing in the family. My dad had sort of bookmaking interests, and and so there was always, you know, a lot of racing in the house. And we lived in Mentone, Mordialloc area, and it was a pretty strong area for racing, with Epsom and the old Mentone track there. Every second street had a backyard stable in it, and it was very common in the afternoons to see horses walking around the street and trotting around the roads in the morning, and it added a lot of atmosphere and that to the area. And anyway, I knocked on John's door and asked him for a job, and he was quite accommodating and very, very much through the years was a great teacher.
In many ways, Johnny Marr was one of the first to go overseas through Lloyd, and you were actively involved, though, in going over into Europe and finding horses?
Well, yes. You know, John couldn't afford the time. He had a young family at the time and really couldn't afford the time overseas. And through Lloyd and John, they suggested that I go over. It'd be good for my career to go and see how racing was conducted and training was conducted over there, and it actually impacted on me quite significantly, what I saw over there, and the introductions that you make at those times. Like, ran into a fledgling bloodstock agent called John Ferguson, and he was in his first year as a bloodstock agent, and you know, here's John Ferguson today. He's heading up Darley, and Henry Plumtree was another one who was working in unison with John Ferguson.
Your memories of that famous first Tuesday in November 1985 when What a Nuisance won the very first $1 Million Cup?
Well, I remember the race I remember staying at home because I was working that day at home, and I remember watching it on telly, and it was fantastic and exciting. And you know, what you see out of that is, you know, your culmination of all your dreams, I suppose, when you see a horse win the Melbourne Cup and you've got some association with it. But I'll never forget that afternoon at work. There was only two of us on in work, and the other person in the stable was a young apprentice called Stephen King. So so it was quite a funny day, actually.
I would say, even though it's not on your description of your career, I would say the greatest asset you got out of the John Marr years was stealing his sister Cheryl to marry her.
Yeah, I did pretty well in that deal. I did pretty well. I've been pretty lucky. I mean, Cheryl's, you know, she's been very heavily and actively involved in my business from the time I, you know, decided to go and start training. And, you know, I don't think I would be here today talking to you if it wasn't for her efforts and the work that she puts into my stable.
To take us through that step as a young man that, you know, on this program we talk to a lot of trainers, and they all talk about that step when you're working for a prominent stable, but it's time to go out on your own. I can imagine, gee, when you put your head down on that pillow, you have some nervous times when you first do it. Yeah,
look, you do. You know, I can remember taking my first steps, and it wasn't easy getting clients. You know, you think people are going to knock on your door, and it doesn't actually happen like that. And I actually facilitated part of my initial training by pre-training a few horses for Bob Hoysted, who I had a very close association with. And Bob was fantastic to me, and right from the time I was a young bloke. So he was able to sort of help me get going, and as well as John helped me get going. And to this day, Brian Michelli has been, he was my initial client, and I'm pretty happy to say that today Brian's still with me. First Metropolitan winner as a trainer was a horse called King Spirit, and he was for Brian Michelli. A high-class horse. He was ridden by Robert Heffernan at the time, and Robert was doing a bit of riding for me, and Robert was in the latter stage of his riding career at the time, but he was a fantastic judge, Robert, and from a trainer's point of view, he had a very good understanding of training, and I found that really rewarding for a young trainer to be able to be associated with someone of Robert's experience, and he helped me no end, Robert. He was a fantastic judge. But that horse, King Spirit, he finished up winning his first two, including a listed race down the straight, and got sold to Hong Kong and went on to be probably one of the better horses that Hong Kong had seen. You know, a horse he raced over there as Helene Star, won the Derby, and I think he was twice horse of the year and got beaten, I think, a nose in the international. But Robert reminded me later on he'd spoken to Patrick Biancone down the track, and he said that he'd have no doubt that he would have made a Group 1 horse wherever he went.
You were originally at Epsom and then moved to Flemington before making your base here down at Mornington. Describe the transition from those sort of bases and what they were like compared to what you've got now.
I trained at Epsom up until it closed, and Epsom was a fantastic training facility, and the trainers, you know, the trainers that trained there trained all the big winners. They were great. You know, there was Golden Slipper winners and Melbourne Cup winners come out of there regularly, and it had a very close proximity to the beach. So it was a fantastic place. So leaving it was very difficult for a lot of trainers, and I chose to go to Flemington. You know, over the top of Caulfield at the time. And I think it was a move that I ill-judged, and my business nearly died on the vine. It wasn't a very successful move for me, and I really, in the finish, I couldn't get out of Flemington quick enough. And so the opportunity came when John went to Singapore to lease his farm, and basically got back on the tools and pre-trained horses and kept a handful of horses, which I thought might be able to carry me through, and I was pretty lucky that out of those horses I got Thong Classic, who won a Moonee Valley Cup and ran the Melbourne Cup, and Vasileios, who won a Ballarat Cup, and Mango Daiquiri ran in the Oaks. So I just kept a neat little number of horses, and it got me going. But we were pretty lucky that we'd kept our property at Mordialloc, and we sold that property to buy down here at Mornington. One of the attractions for me at coming to Mornington was Mornington's an undulating surface, and it offers you good resistance in your training, and you've also got access to the beaches. So they were two things that I was pretty sure I wanted to have as part of my training routine. And Mornington, the Mornington Peninsula is a fantastic area. It's got a fantastic climate, and certainly we enjoy being down this part of the world, and hopefully we'll be here for a fair while.
Your first Group 1, take us through that day and the emotions after it, and the feeling of satisfaction, no doubt.
Yeah, look, first Group 1 was a Rappahoe Miss in the Oaks, and Corey Brown rode her, and she'd had a pretty low-key sort of program into the Oaks. She won a maiden at Geelong, and she ran second in a 1.25 mile fillies race on Caulfield Cup Day. But you know, what she'd shown us on the track was she had enormous depths of stamina, and you know, we didn't think that, you know, 1.5 miles or 2,500 at Flemington was going to be any obstacle for her. Also had another run in the race called Royal Harmony, and for a fleeting moment there, they sort of made their runs together, and I thought couldn't be happening because they couldn't run 1-2. Well, didn't happen like that, but I didn't have any sort of nervous expectation of the race. I just went through the race, and I just was confident that we'd prepared them well, and the result fitted that. But post-race, I just felt enormous relief for Cheryl, and the pressure that you know that trainers' wives endure. And I think anyone who's got a trainer's wife, they're unheralded, and you know, the trainers go about their business, and they get the accolades, they get the pats on the back, and then you get back to the office, and the wife's, you know, she's going through the yard of mud trying to make it all work. You know, so my spin on it was that I just felt enormous relief for Cheryl, and that was the beauty of it. I'm
reluctant to talk about a horse, but I have to talk about a horse who gave you a great high winning 2011 Group 1 BMW, but at the same time, probably one of the big heartaches in your racing career in Cedarburg.
Oh, look, I look at Cedarberg and I think I don't know how far he would have gone. You know, he was untapped, Cedarberg, and his star was just on the rise at the time. He'd had some setbacks as a young horse, so we weren't able to get a real crack at him as a spring 3-year-old, and it wasn't until he got to the autumn that we were able to start racing him and get him up and going a bit. But he came back as a 4-year-old and he won the Ansett Stakes at Mornington, and then which got him up and going, and he was able to run second to Herbert Power, and then he was able to go and win the BMW. So he came back and he ran an absolute cracker first up in the Ori Star. You know, that lovely fresh stayers run that you like to see for the start of the spring, and you know, it's history now. But he went to Moonee Valley, and in a nothing more than a leisurely gallop, going even time, he had a heart attack, and you know, no one can explain why those things happen. And you know, to come back to the stable, and the kids had got the news, all the staff had got the news at the stable, and to come back to an empty box, you know, they took it really hard.
Yeah, I could imagine. Well, to win the 2012 AJC Derby with a maiden in Ethiopia must have been an unbelievable thrill for you as a trainer.
This horse had a pretty good grounding, and you know, we just grew in confidence with him as we got further down the track. He was, you know, he ran a respectable race in his maiden, but his run at Caulfield in the Autumn Stakes and his run in the Alistair Clark were really good, and we just knew that when we got him to Randwick, on the big Randwick track, that there was a chance for something special to happen for him. And you know, his whole work through the whole period of time leading up to the race was pretty special. And on the day, you know, his actual his race was something exceptional. Like, he come from last, and I think he run 46 the last half mile and run the second fastest Derby since octagonal. So we've got a softly approach with him. We don't want to wind him up too much. He's had a fantastic spell at home. He's come back looking in exceptional order. We're really happy with him. You know, we've got one eye on the spring, but we've got, more importantly, we've got one eye on the autumn, and certainly with, you know, and for next year as well. So we're going to be careful about how we structure his program, and give him every opportunity to maximise himself in the spring, and then come through to the autumn of next year.
And since Ethiopia, has the phone been ringing? Have you received a few new horses?
I have been asked to train a few extra horses, and I've always managed to keep a reasonably full stable. I train 26 horses, but you know, I have to be very mindful of the people who have supported me to this point, and I'm satisfied and happy, and very thankful to the loyal clientele that I got.
And you'll be training horses for a fair while yet, Pat? You're only a young man.
Yeah, I love it. Look, I love racing. I love getting out of. I don't see myself doing anything different. And I just love going to the race. I love going to sales. I love the whole concept.
Okay, maybe we'll see you in a suit. Is that the dream, to see you in a suit in the mounting yard on the first Tuesday in November, and hopefully cheering on a horse maybe to get in that #1 stall?
Yeah, look, I don't think you'd be Victorian or Australian and involved in training if you didn't have that aspiration. And you know, I mean, we all at some stage would like to think we'd be there, but for anyone who can ever enjoy the experience of being at Flemington in Cup Week, in any race, in any race, and winning a race, it's exhilarating, it's exciting, and you know, it's probably only akin to running on the MCG in finals week.
This program proudly brought to you by Centrebet. No other bookie offers a tote guarantee on your fixed odds bets.